Hello friends, welcome back. Now in revision lecture 9 part 2 we are going to discuss search, seizure, offences, penalties and arrest. In that I am starting with search, seizure and confiscation. What is this search, seizure and confiscation about? There are two situations in which such provisions are applicable. Section 67 and section 129. What is the background of this search? Whenever department conducts the audit or department has identified or got information that a particular registered person is trying to evade GST payable. So in that case, in order to gather the further evidence, because if the department wanted to give a notice and initiate the recovery proceedings to collect the tax, they need to have sufficient evidence. So without having evidence, so they cannot initiate any recovery. Or first of all, to give show cause notice, first they should be having some kind of a doubt. So that should be established on that person. So what happens? Randomly they may go and do the inspection, or they got an information, then they again go for a search. So this is the difference between inspection and search. So randomly when I go and check for whether there is something, that is known as inspection. I got some information, so I have a doubt and I am going and searching the premise, that is known as search. So during this inspection or search, I may be getting some goods or documents containing the details of the goods which are liable for confiscation. And those goods or documents containing the details of the goods liable for confiscation, including the conveyance which is carrying the goods liable for confiscation, I can seize. So what is the meaning of seizure? Which means that possession will be transferred from the person from whom the goods were seized or documents were seized or conveyance were seized to the department, but the ownership of those goods and conveyance will be with that person from whom it was seized. Whereas it is not practically possible to take the seizure, that is, possession cannot be taken by the department. Let's take a scenario that in a highway there is a lorry, and that lorry contains some goods which are liable for confiscation. Now seizure order is not practically possible, because what is it they can do with that lorry and those goods? So they need to take it to a different place. Rather than that, so they will be passing a detention order. Detention order means you should not part with those goods or conveyance. So as it is, wherever those goods are there, wherever the conveyance is there, so it should stay in that place only. And so either seizure order or confiscation order, thereafter they have to pass either seizure order or detention order. Thereafter they need to pass a confiscation order. What is the difference between seizure and confiscation, or detention and confiscation? You understood the difference between seizure and detention. What is the difference between seizure and detention? Seizure means I am taking the possession, I am department person, I am taking the possession, but the ownership is with that person. Detention, I am not taking possession, I passed a detention order wherein those goods will be with that person and he should not move those goods. So that is about detention order. Then confiscation is whenever the goods which are with that particular person, or legal ownership is with that person, but the possession is with me, now the ownership also gets transferred to me, that is known as confiscation. So first inspection, I don't have a doubt, but randomly I am going and searching. Search, I have a doubt and I know that some goods are secreted, so I will go and search. Then number 3, either seizure or detention. And confiscation, once confiscation order is passed, the ownership also will be with the department. So these are the few terminologies used in the context. So there are two situations where search is possible. Number 1, section 67 says go to the business premises and search, and if you get any goods which are liable for confiscation or documents liable for confiscation, you immediately pass a seizure order. That is situation number 1. Situation number 2 says that whenever the goods are in transit and it contains some goods which are liable for confiscation, pass a seizure order to take over those goods as well as that conveyance. So these are the two situations given in section 67 and section 129, and thereafter the confiscation proceedings in both cases, 67 case and 129 case, is given in section 130. Now we are going to see this in detail. Now have a look into this page number 94. Seizure and confiscation under GST. Situations, two situations I was referring to. What are those two situations? Situation 1, inspection was carried out at the business premises of the registered person. So where is it carried out? At the business premises of the registered person, or transporter or warehouse operator. And so situation 1 is search in the premises, whereas situation 2, conveyance carrying goods are intercepted by the proper officer. So what is searched in situation 2? Conveyance. Conveyance carrying the goods are intercepted by the proper officer for inspection. Now, so we are first dealing with situation 1 and then we will go to situation 2. So in situation 1, first the proper officer is going to the business premises of the registered person or transporter or warehouse keeper, and they are initiating the search proceedings. Now, if any unaccounted goods are found, such goods are liable for confiscation. So if there are some goods which are identified there and those goods are not accounted in the records, which means these goods are liable for confiscation. Or if they got some documents, the documents contains the details of the goods which are unaccounted, even those documents are also liable for confiscation. Then, so in section 67, seizure from place of business, order for seizure of goods or documents shall be passed. Now, there are two options available now if for release of the goods. Now, what happened? So, for example, I am a GST officer, I visited your place and I have passed the seizure order to seize the goods or the documents. Now, for release of this, I will give you two options. Option number 1, pay the applicable tax, interest and penalty, I will release the goods. But of course, for the mistake of non-accounting of the goods, I may initiate the penalty. For the mistake of non-accounting of the goods, I will initiate the penalty. So pay that tax, interest and applicable penalty. So I will release that goods to you. But you have committed the offense. What is that offense? You tried to deal with the goods liable for confiscation, for which I will initiate the prosecution proceedings separately, because it is like you did the mistake and for that mistake I need to initiate the prosecution proceedings. So I will do that, but the goods will be released now. But the proceedings are continuing. What proceedings? The criminal proceedings, because the imprisonment proceedings will be continuing, but the tax collection proceedings will be dropped. So what is that? Pay applicable tax, interest and penalty, goods shall be released, all proceedings in this respect shall be deemed to be concluded. All proceedings in this respect shall be deemed to be concluded, which means that, sir, what proceedings here are concluded here, this particular imprisonment proceedings will also be concluded. Yes, that's the advantage. So when you pay the tax, interest and applicable penalty, so no proceeding will be initiated for this offense. So all proceedings will be concluded. It is option 1. Sir, I don't have that much money to pay the tax, interest and penalty. Now, is there any other alternative? But I don't want the proceedings to be continuing. I want the proceedings to be concluded. Is there any alternative? Yes, there is another alternative. Option 2. Provisional release of goods by executing a bond covering value of the goods. So you execute a bond covering the value of the goods. So goods will be provisionally released, but you need to pay the tax, interest and penalty, then all the proceedings will be deemed to be concluded. So these are the two options given to the person from whom we are taking or seizure of goods or documents. So these are the two options. So option 1, what will happen? Pay the tax, interest and penalty, pay the tip, tax, interest and penalty, so that all the proceedings are deemed to be concluded and happily you walk. Suppose if you don't have sufficient money, why you don't have sufficient money? Only when you get the goods, you can sell the goods and you can repay. Then execute a bond for value of the goods, they will release the goods, sell the goods, bring the money, pay the tax, interest and penalty. So thereafter all the proceedings will be deemed to be concluded. So these are the two options. Now, if you are not exercising these two options, what will happen? I will proceed to pass a confiscation order. I will proceed to pass a confiscation order. Already I passed a seizure order, the possession is with me. Now ownership also will be transferred to me. Then I will sell those goods and I will not pay 1 rupee also out of that proceeds to you. That is what confiscation order. And this confiscation order, when I pass, I will again give you an option. So it is like a third option, redemption option. So when I pass a confiscation order, you fail to exercise option 1 and 2. Now I will again give a confiscation order with a third option called as redemption option. Option to pay redemption fine and get the goods. But now you need to pay for tip F, tax, interest, penalty and fine, redemption fine. So when you pay that redemption fine, then I will release the goods. Otherwise, the confiscation order is passed, I gave you an option, you did not redeem that option, so I will take over those goods and those goods I will dispose of. So see that. Tax and penalty payable along with redemption fine. If option not opted, confiscated goods shall be disposed of. So a confiscation order plus redemption option. Confiscation order plus redemption option. What is this redemption option? Option to redeem goods by paying fine, and very important, what is the time limit that they are giving? Within 3 months. Within 3 months I need to make the payment. Redemption fine in case of goods. How much redemption fine I need to pay? See, exactly or absolute number is not given. How much redemption fine I need to pay? Absolute number, exact number is not given, but they are telling the maximum redemption fine that can be levied equal to market value of those goods as reduced by applicable tax on those goods. See that. Maximum redemption fine equals to market value of the goods minus tax chargeable, the applicable tax on those goods. However, the total penalty and redemption fine cannot be less than penalty leviable under section 121. So this particular point is not applicable for section 67. Right now we are discussing section 67. So for that section 67, this point is not applicable. That is applicable only in case of section 129. Then same way, next point, redemption fine in case of conveyance also not applicable in section 67, because in section 67 we are not confiscating or we are not taking any conveyance. It is only the access to the business premises from where the goods are being seized. So this is about situation 1, that is section 67 read with section 130. Now we are proceeding to section 129, second situation. What is that second situation? There is a conveyance. In that conveyance, goods are being transported. Proper officer has intercepted that conveyance, and proper officer has identified some goods which are being transported and without any proper documentation. Then those goods are liable for confiscation. And whenever those goods are liable for confiscation, even the conveyance is also liable for confiscation. Now a seizure order will be passed to seize both goods as well as conveyance. When it is not practically possible to seize, they will pass a detention order. So it is for both goods and conveyance. That's very important. Both goods and conveyance. Both goods and conveyance. Again, 2 options are given. What are those 2 options? Option number 1, pay tax, interest and penalty, pay tax, interest and penalty and take the goods. Or execute a bond and provisionally we will release the goods, thereafter pay tax, interest and penalty, so all proceedings will be concluded. What is the time limit within which I have to pay? 14 days. What is the time limit within which I have to pay? That is within which the person has to pay 14 days from the date of the seizure order, and in case of perishable goods they may reduce that even. See that following shall be paid within 14 days of seizure. In case of perishable goods the time period can be reduced. This point, following shall be paid within 14 days. In case of perishable goods that can be reduced, and whenever you pay, like whenever that person pay that particular tax, interest and penalty, even that conveyance will be released, all proceedings in this respect shall be deemed to be concluded. Now what is the tax, interest and penalty that is payable? What is the penalty? If owner of the goods come forward, if owner of the goods does not come forward, like that, 2 points are there. Owner of the goods coming forward, owner of the goods not coming forward. So if owner of the goods is not coming forward, then who will come forward? There are two cases here. If you can see, two headings are there. Owner of the goods coming forward, owner of the goods not coming forward. If owner is not coming forward, then who will come forward? The transporter may come forward, because they are not only transporting few goods which are liable for confiscation, other goods also they are transporting, and those goods are not liable for confiscation. Now when they seize the conveyance, how they can take those goods? So therefore the transporter may come forward. If the owner is coming forward, the penalty will be 100% of the tax applicable on those goods. If owner is coming forward, then what will be the penalty? 100% of the tax on such goods, that will be the penalty. Tax is payable and 100% of the tax involved. See that non-exempt goods means taxable goods. Tax payable plus penalty equals to 100% of the tax payable. What if it is exempted goods? Sir, why in a case of exempted goods, the goods are liable for confiscation? Maybe those goods do not accompany a bill of supply. In that case, the goods may be liable for confiscation. So in that case, what will be the penalty? If owner of the goods is coming forward, it is 2% of the value of goods or 25,000. Very important, whichever is lower means the maximum penalty will be 25,000, which is like a general penalty. So 2% of the value of goods or 25,000, whichever is lower. So usually penalties will be whichever is higher, but in this place it is whichever is lower. And next, in case owner is not coming forward. Now there is also another interpretation here. What is the meaning of owner not coming forward? That is, owner is coming forward and requesting to pay the tax, interest and penalty, or owner is not coming forward and the department is giving them the option to pay. So it is like the goods are seized, the conveyance is seized. Now department may initiate and they will give a notice asking them to pay the tax, interest and penalty to release the goods, or the owner will come and request so that I am ready to pay the tax, interest and penalty, please release. Like that, owner may come forward or owner does not come forward. This is another interpretation. But in study material, nowhere they have given an explanation regarding this. When owner is not coming forward, like that, they have not given any explanation. So there are two different interpretations. Owner come forward, owner is not coming forward means then who is coming forward? Transporter. That way you can interpret. Or owner is coming forward means owner voluntarily coming forward for release of the goods, or department is giving them the option for paying tax and release of the goods. That's also another interpretation. But there is no clarity, because only when the cases got reported, so we will come to know. So but there is no clarity, and even study material they have not given anything related to this. Now when owner is not coming forward, then in case of taxable goods, what will be the penalty? Value of the goods minus tax paid thereon. Value of the goods minus tax paid thereon. See here, 50% of the value of the goods, 50% of the value of the goods minus tax paid thereon. What is the meaning of tax paid thereon? So it is not tax payable. It is not tax payable. Tax paid thereon. Already I would have paid some tax on those goods. The tax payable is 8 lakhs, but I paid 6 lakhs. So 6 lakhs will be deducted. What if there is no information in the question? You can take two assumptions. Assumption number one, whatever tax given in the question, you can assume that the tax has been paid thereon. Accordingly, you can deduct. Suppose in that question, if they have not given anything related to tax, we will take only 50% of the value of the goods. If tax details are given, you can take two assumptions. What is the first assumption that you can take? That is, assuming that the tax has been paid, which means that when I have paid, when there is some GST payable, but I have paid a lesser amount, so that much will be deducted. So if the question is silent, then I will take only value of the goods, 50% of value of the goods. If the question has tax, I can take two assumptions. Assumption number one, I can assume that the tax has been paid and therefore the tax given in the question can be deducted. Or assumption number two, second way also you can take that as there is no information regarding whether the tax has been paid or not, therefore nothing is deducted from 50% of the value of the goods. Anyway, you can take the assumption. Then in case of exempted goods, when owner is not coming forward, and in case of exempted goods which is being transported, then 5% of the value of the goods or 25,000, whichever is lower. Again here it is whichever is lower, but only the rate changes 5%. So this portion is very important, and definitely you can expect questions on this. So now what is the penalty? See, anyhow tax is payable, interest is payable. Or penalty you need to remember. What is the penalty under section 129? And that too when 129 will be applicable? When the goods are being transported and the officer has intercepted the goods, the conveyance, and they have passed the seizure order for seizing the goods and the conveyance, then the penalty will be payable to release the goods along with tax and interest, and that penalty will be equals to 100% of the tax payable. If it is owner coming forward and it is taxable goods, if it is exempted goods, 2% of the value of the goods or 25,000, whichever is lower. And if the owner is not coming forward and if it is taxable goods, 50% of the value of the goods minus tax paid thereon. That's a word that is used, tax paid thereon. And if it is exempted goods, 5% of the value of the goods or 25,000, whichever is lower. Then option 2 is what? Option 2 is provisional release of the goods by executing the bond along with security and for the value of the goods as well as the tax component. So value of the goods, bond should be executed. Provisional release of the goods by executing a bond covering the value of the goods. So a bond should be for value of the goods and security should be for the purpose of tax, interest and penalty. And then the provisional release will be there. Thereafter you try to sell and repay so that the bond whatever you have executed or security whatever you have furnished will get released. What if these two options are not exercised? Section 130 says that they will pass a confiscation order, same, plus option to pay redemption fine, and that fine should be paid within 3 months. And how much is that fine? If it is goods, for release of the goods, now the two confiscation orders will be passed. One is to confiscate the goods, second is to confiscate the conveyance. There are two redemption fines which are payable. First redemption fine is to get the goods, second redemption fine is to get the conveyance. So redemption fine number 1 to release the goods is that market value of the goods minus tax chargeable. So here it should be taken as tax chargeable, not tax paid thereon. It should be tax chargeable, very important. It should be tax chargeable. And whatever penalty that we have so far discussed under section 129, so that should be less than this penalty and redemption fine here. Because if the penalty and redemption fine here is less than the options what we have discussed before, then people will wait for the third option and will make use of the third option. So definitely option 1 and 2, the penalty should be less than the penalty that is being levied under option 3, that is under redemption fine. Then redemption fine in case of goods we have seen. What is redemption fine in case of conveyance? Tax payable on the goods which are transported in the conveyance. So there are some goods which are liable for confiscation. So those goods, what will be the tax payable? So that tax payable will be taken as the redemption fine. So tax payable on the goods transported thereon, so that much should be paid as the redemption fine, then the goods will be released, the conveyance will be released. So this is about search and seizure. Now the next area is offences and penalties under GST. Offences and penalties, we have multiple offences for which penalties are applicable, and we have section 122, in that again subsection 1, subsection 2, subsection 3, then 123, 124 and 125. So total 6 sections are there: 122 subsection 1, 122 subsection 2 and 122 subsection 3, 123, 124 and 125. These are the 6 sections which deals with penalties under GST. And we are starting with 122 subsection 1. There are few offences listed out in section 122 subsection 1. Around some 21 offences are listed out. But you don't have to remember these 21 offences. I tried to make it into a keyword. If you can remember the 21 offences in this keyword, that is sufficient. So remember the keyword bio discredits TFT. Bio discredits TFT. B for books of accounts default. What will be there in this books of accounts default? Not maintaining books of accounts, or maintaining false books of accounts, or faking the books of accounts. Books of accounts default, non-maintenance or false or fake books of accounts. Then second, I, invoice default. What is invoice default? I am making supply without invoice. That is, I am making supply without invoice, or I am giving invoice without supply. Why I will give invoice without supply? So that the other person can take ITC. Then I am giving invoice with wrong details. So incorrect invoice, supply without invoice, supply with incorrect invoice, or invoice without supply. That is I. Then O, obstructing an officer from doing duty. So an officer is coming for inspection, you hit him and send. So that is obstructing an officer from doing duty. Then D, dealing in goods liable for confiscation. There are some goods which are liable for confiscation. You are storing those goods, or you are transporting those goods, or you are the person who is the owner of those goods. So dealing in goods liable for confiscation. Then input service distributor default. You have to distribute some credit with respect to the input services ITC what you have availed, and you distribute it in excess. So in that case, ISD default. Then supply with GSTIN of another person. So what you are doing, you have taken GSTIN of your like some people whom you know, and under that GSTIN you supplied the goods, so that you collected money from the customer, but department when they trace, they will be asking him to pay the GST, but that person will say, I have not at all supplied, from where I can pay GST. So with some other person's GSTIN when you are supplying the goods. Then collected tax not deposited. Collected tax not deposited within 3 months. There are 2 points in this year. That is, I am supposed to collect tax, I collected it and I have not deposited within 3 months. Second, I am not supposed to collect tax, but I have collected an amount as tax. So 2 things, collected tax, collected an amount as tax, both are covered. Collected tax when we are referring to, including an amount collected as tax. 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 So what is the difference between tax collected and amount collected as tax? I am supposed to collect, I collected. I am not supposed to collect, but I collected. That is known as amount collected as tax. But it is not paid within 3 months. Then R. So bio dis we have completed. Then credits, in that C over R. Registration related default. What does it mean? Non-registration. You have crossed the turnover, but you have not registered. Or giving false information for registration, fake details. Then E for erroneous refund. You are not supposed to get the refund, but you got the refund, erroneous refund. Then D, disposal of goods while detention or seizure is operational. So detention is operational, you should not deal with the goods, like you should not take those goods, but you sold those goods. Seizure is operational, the goods are in the possession of the department, you barged into their premises, took those goods. So disposal of goods when detention or seizure is operational. Then ITC credit, that is ITC default, input tax credit defaults. You are not supposed to take ITC, but you took ITC. Then T, tampering with material evidence. So there is some material evidence available with the officer and you try to tamper that material evidence either directly or through any other person. Then suppression of turnover. You cross the turnover beyond the threshold limit, but you try to suppress that turnover. Then TDS or TCS default. You collected the amount as TDS or TCS, that is you deducted it, but you did not pay it, that is TDS or TCS default. Failure to furnish information or document asked for. So department is asking for information or a document and you have not submitted that. Then transportation related default. You are transporting the goods without the valid documents. So these are the various offences. So remember, bio discredits TFT, and for all these offences, what will be the penalty? The penalty will be 10,000 rupees or 100% of the tax involved or ITC involved or refund, whichever is higher. 100% of the tax involved or ITC or refund, whichever is higher, will be taken as the penalty. So what is the penalty in case of these offences here? 122 subsection 1, 10,000 rupees. See the next page. 10,000 rupees or tax or ITC involved, whichever is higher, that is the penalty. Now, what is section 122 subsection 2? So what ifs that we have discussed so far is only offences and penalties. I did not touch the imprisonment provision. I will come back to that imprisonment provision later. We are trying to learn the offences, what are the offences and what is the penalty in case of that offences. So 122 subsection 1, bio discredits TFT, what is the penalty? 10,000 rupees or amount involved. What is that amount involved means? Tax or ITC or refund, 100% of that, whichever is higher. Next, 122 subsection 2. This penalty is on account of non-payment, short payment, then wrong availment of ITC, wrong utilization of ITC or erroneous refund. And this may be other than fraud, or fraud means you have intention to evade or you don't have intention to evade. 122 subsection 1 penalty is on taxable person. 122 subsection 1 penalty is on whom? Taxable person. 122 subsection 2 penalty is on whom? Registered person. 122 subsection 1 penalty is on taxable person. 122 subsection 2 penalty is on registered person. Don't forget this. So 122 subsection 1 penalty, 122 subsection 1 is on taxable person, is on taxable person, and 122 subsection 2, 122 subsection 2 is on registered person. Then there are few cases where both 122 subsection 1 and 122 subsection 2 will be applicable. That is, non-payment, short payment is there even in 122 subsection 1, collected tax not paid. Then ITC related default is there in 122 subsection 1, even erroneous refund is also there in 122 subsection 1. Then how the penalty will be levied? It is like, whenever there is a penalty under section 122 subsection 1, that is on taxable person, that is a registered person or any person who is liable to get registered. Whereas 122 subsection 2 is on registered person. So if penalty is levied under section 122 subsection 1, usually penalty under section 122 subsection 2 will not come. So it is like mutually exclusive. Mutually exclusive in case of a registered person. Mutually exclusive in case of registered person. Mutually exclusive in case of registered person. In case of registered person, it is mutually exclusive, which means either of these two will come. And what will be the penalty under 122 subsection 2? If it is fraud, means intention to evade is there, intention to evade is there, then 100% of the tax or ITC or refund or 10,000, whichever is higher, just like 122 subsection 1 penalty. If it is other than fraud, then it is not 100% of the tax, it is 10% of the tax or ITC or refund or 10,000, whichever is higher. See the difference. If it is other than fraud means bona fide. So bona fide, that is not a malified intention, it's a bona fide intention, bona fide. Whereas fraud means malified, intention to evade is there. So in case of bona fide, no intention to evade, what will be the 10% of the tax or ITC, whichever is like 10% of the tax or ITC or erroneous refund, or 10,000, whichever is higher. Then 122 subsection 3 penalty. Offences where the person is not directly involved in any evasion but may be party to evasion, or if he does not attend any summons or produce documents. That is, there is a person who is not directly involved in any evasion but may be party to the evasion, so supporting character, or summons were given to him to come and appear but he did not appear. So in that case, the penalty will be levied under 122 subsection 3, which may extend up to 25,000 rupees, means like a general penalty. Then 123 and 124 offences is not that usual in nature. We don't have that much notified for the purpose of this, but for MCQ purpose a question can be asked. 123, person failed to furnish information written under section 150. There is a concept of information written, that is, when department wanted to get the information about a particular person. Say for example, there is a person who is making lot of transactions and department need his bank statement to know whether he crossed the aggregate turnover or not, and they are asking the bank to give the bank statement of that person, and bank has to give that information. This is known as information written, which is to be submitted by the bank under section 150. Now if they fail to give that information written, then a notice will be given, and after that notice, within a time limit, they have to furnish that information. Otherwise, the penalty will be 100 rupees per day for the failure period, subject to a maximum of 25,000 rupees. Then 124, a person who is required to furnish this statistics. That is, this is usually on the officers, any officer, government officer or any person. So commissioner is asking for information like statistics, to furnish the statistics from a person, and that person has not furnished the statistics. In that case, if it is first time offense, 10,000 rupees, up to 10,000 rupees. If it is a continuing offense, 100 rupees per day for the failure period, subject to a maximum of 25,000. And there is a general penalty. When general penalty will come, there is an offense which is not covered under anywhere under this act, and for that offense a general penalty, that is contravention of provisions of the act or rules, but for which there is no separate penalty imposed, then a general penalty up to 25,000 will be applicable. All these penalties are under CGST Act, and the same should be paid even under SGST Act. So therefore, whatever we discuss now multiplied with 2 will be the total penalty that is payable. Then these are the sections: 122 subsection 1, subsection 2, subsection 3, 123, 124 and 125. These subsections or these sections deals with offences and penalties. Now we are discussing imprisonment provision, which is in section 132, which is in section 132 that we are going to discuss now. What are the offences for which imprisonment gets attracted? All these offences you have learnt in 122 subsection 1, biodiscredits TFT. In that, RDSTT you take out. In these offences, biodiscredits TFT, RDSTT you take out. What is R? Registration related default. What is D? Disposal of goods while detention or seizure is operational. Then yes, suppression of turnover. TT TDS default, TCS default, or transportation of goods related, transportation related default. So in case of RDSTT, there is no imprisonment. Other than RDSTT, biodiscredits minus RDSTT, imprisonment will be attracted. And what is that imprisonment? If the amount involved means tax or ITC or refund, exceeds 1 crore, exceeds 2 crores, exceeds 3 crores, like that you need to remember. Tax or ITC or refund exceeds 1 crore, exceeds 2 crore, exceeds 3 crore, then the imprisonment will be up to 1 year, that is imprisonment will be 1 year, in case of 1, in case of 2 it is 3, and in case of exceeding 5 it will be 5. You understood? See here, 1 crore, amount exceeds 1 crore, amount exceeds 1 crore, amount exceeds 1 crore, imprisonment 1 year, amount exceeds 2 crore, imprisonment 3 years, amount exceeds 5 crores, imprisonment 5 years. So you need to remember, in the tax or ITC or refund, more than 1 crore, more than 2 crore, more than 5 crore, and there you need to remember maximum 1 year, maximum 3 years, and maximum 5 years, and there is a minimum imprisonment in all these 3 cases. That minimum imprisonment is up to 6 months will be the minimum imprisonment, unless sufficient grounds are shown, sufficient causes or grounds are shown for a lesser imprisonment, but the minimum imprisonment is for a period of 6 months, and this imprisonment will be undefined. In all these cases undefined is common, and whatever we discuss now is in case of first time offense. If it is a repeated offense, so he is a senior in that offense, then irrespective of the tax or ITC or refund, it will be 5 years plus fine. So whatever beyond 5 crores we have discussed, so the same imprisonment will be applicable. Next, if there is a person who attempt to commit or abets commission of the following offences, if there is a person who attempt to commit or abets commission of the following offence, what are those? Books of accounts default, obstructing an officer from doing duty, or tampering material evidence. So attempt to commit or abets commission of an offence, who try to do that, in that case, books of accounts default, obstructing an officer from doing duty, or tampering material evidence, the imprisonment will be up to 6 months or fine or both. What if it is subsequent? This is for the first time. This is for the first time. What if it is subsequent? This is for the first time. What if it is subsequent? If it is subsequent, then minimum 6 months, maximum 5 years, plus fine. So that will be the imprisonment. Then we have cognizable and non-cognizable offences. We have cognizable and non-cognizable offences. We'll try to understand this. What is cognizable offence? Cognizable offence means an offence where a person can be arrested without a court issued warrant. Without a warrant, arrest warrant, a person can be arrested. That is known as a cognizable offence. Whereas non-cognizable offence means a person can be arrested only with the arrest warrant. That is known as non-cognizable offence. And cognizable offences are non-bailable, which means the arresting officer cannot grant bail, but should be produced before the magistrate within 24 hours of the arrest. So therefore, cognizable offences are non-bailable offences. So remember, cognizable offences are non-bailable offences, which means that when a person is arrested under a cognizable offence, that person need not, like, arrest warrant is not required, and the arresting officer cannot grant the bail, and within 24 hours he should be produced before the magistrate. Then suppose if it is non-cognizable offense. What does it mean? If the offense is non-cognizable and that person can be arrested only with the court issued warrant, and these non-cognizable offenses are bailable offenses. Non-cognizable offenses are bailable offenses, means the officer can grant the bail, the arresting officer can grant the bail. That is known as non-cognizable offenses. Suppose if bail is not granted, then he should be produced before the magistrate. So that is known as non-cognizable plus bailable offenses. Now, what are the offenses under the GST which are cognizable and non-bailable? Remember, 2 IC. What are they? Number 1, invoice default. Invoice default already we discussed. Supply without invoice, invoice without supply, and supply with incorrect invoice. So invoice default, ITC default, and collected an amount as tax and not deposited within 3 months. So here collected tax means which will come? Collected an amount as tax. So remember, it is collected an amount as tax. Collected an amount as tax. Collected an amount as tax and not paid within 3 months. Collected an amount as tax and not paid within 3 months. So these are the 3 offenses which are cognizable. If the tax involved or refund involved or ITC involved exceeds 5 crores, then only it will be cognizable plus non-bailable. See that. Evasion of tax exceeds 5 crore, then only it will be cognizable plus non-bailable. Then what if these offenses does not exceed 5 crore? Non-cognizable plus bailable. Any other offense will be non-cognizable plus bailable. You can see this. If that does not exceed 5 crores or any other offense will be non-cognizable plus bailable. So now tell me, what are the cognizable offenses? So 3 offenses: invoice default, ITC default, collected amount as tax and not deposited within 3 months. These 3 are cognizable offenses if the amount exceeds 5 crores. If the amount does not exceed, if the tax does not exceed 5 crores, then these are non-cognizable and bailable, and even all other offenses are non-cognizable and bailable. Next, when arrest can be made? If it is these 3 offenses, when the amount exceeds 2 crores, when this is the 3 offenses, amount exceeds 2 crores, then arrest can be made. Which means in case of any other offense, arrest cannot be made. Yes, any other offense, arrest cannot be made. Then what is the point of discussing non-cognizable plus bailable? See that what is the meaning of that non-cognizable and bailable is what I said. And under GST, the arrest provisions are not applicable. So arrest provisions are applicable only in 3 cases. What are they? Same: invoice default, ITC default, collected amount as tax and not deposited within 3 months. When the amount exceeds 2 crores, then when the amount exceeds 2 crores but does not exceed 5 crores, it is non-cognizable plus bailable. When the amount exceeds 5 crores, it is cognizable plus non-bailable. So that chart only I have just given here. Then, so this penalties, what we have discussed now is penalties, offenses and penalties, and the imprisonment. From that we have also completed the arrest provisions, cognizable and non-cognizable offenses. Now look into section 126, general disciplines relating to offenses and penalties. 126, no penalty for minor offenses. What is the meaning of minor offense? Where the tax involved does not exceed 5,000 rupees, that is minor offense, which can be easily rectifiable and made. No penalty for an offense which can be easily rectifiable and made without fraudulent intent or gross negligence. In that case, it will become a minor offense and there is no penalty in that case. And next, one more point. Suppose if that person who committed the offense is coming forward to the officer and he is telling like he committed the offense, will that be considered as the grounds for reducing the penalty? Yes, that will be considered as grounds for reducing the penalty. Then more details about this we will see in questions for practice. There we will discuss. And section 127, where proper officer is of the view that a person is liable to pay penalty and the same is not covered under following proceedings, he may levy penalty after giving a reasonable opportunity of being heard. So there are multiple sections. Is of the view that person is liable to pay penalty and same is not covered under following proceedings, then penalty alone can be levied separately. Then section 128, government may by notification waive in full or part any penalty referred to in section 122, 123 or 125 but not 124, or any late fee for delay in filing returns for such class of taxpayers as may be notified. Then section 133, officer engaged under this act willfully disclose any information or the contents of any return otherwise than in execution of his duties. Penalty is 25,000, imprisonment 6 months or both. That is an officer disclosing the data. Then one notification here. Audit we have discussed. Can that be conducted for part of a year? Yes, it can be conducted, and all assessment orders should be uploaded in the common portal. So these are some notifications related to this. So with this we completed offence search, seizure, offences, penalties, confiscation, all this we have completed. Let's see some questions based on this. See, being a summary material, there are a lot like only important from exam point of view I have covered, and few more points I have not covered, and that we will be doing through questions for practice. And look into inspection, search, seizure and arrest, chapter number 18, questions for practice of ICAI. Explain the situation in which access to business premises is allowed under section 71 of the GST Act. Also list the records which are to be produced during the access to the business premises. It's a theory question. It's a theory question, and I have not given that in summary. First, during the course of any enquiry under this act. So during the course of any enquiry under this act, the duly empowered officer can have access to any business premises which may be required for the purpose of such inquiry. So there should be an inquiry under this act, and for the purpose of that inquiry, for the purpose of such inquiry, so business premises can be accessed. During such access, the officer can inspect what is that they can inspect? They can inspect books of accounts, documents, computers, computer programs, computer software. So remember, books of accounts and documents, one. Computers, computer software, computer programs, and such other things as may be required. So tell me what is that they can access? Books of accounts, documents, computers, computer programs, computer software, or such other things as may be required. That it is the duty of the person in charge of such premises. So what is the duty of that person in charge? Duty of the person in charge to what? To furnish the required documents. To furnish the required documents. Similarly, the person in charge of the business premises are also duty bound to furnish such documents to the audit party deputed. To furnish such documents to the audit party deputed in case of special audit or departmental audit parties are deputed, na? So those records should be given by the proper officer or chartered accountant or cost accountant who has been deputed by commissioner to carry out special audit. The following records, what are the records which are required to be submitted? All the books, accounts and records which are to be maintained under section 35. All the accounts and records to be maintained under section 35. That is point number 1. Then this is section 35. All the records which are to be maintained. Then trial balance and its equivalent. Statement of annual financial records duly audited financials. Then cost audit report if any in case of a manufacturer, income tax audit report and any other relevant record. So these are the records which are to be made available to the person whenever they have asked that. So this information is given in section 71. It's a theory question. You have to remember this as it is. Then explain the safeguards provided under section 16(9) to a person who is placed under an arrest. So arrest provisions are given in section 16(9), and in that 16(9), what is that? Two offences, cognizable, non-cognizable. If a person is arrested for a cognizable offence, he must be informed of the grounds of arrest and produced before the magistrate within 24 hours. We discussed that, produced before the magistrate within 24 hours. If it is a cognizable offence. What if it is a non-cognizable offence? He may be admitted on bail, he may be admitted to bail, or in default of bail forward to the custody of the magistrate. Then all arrests should be in accordance with the provisions of criminal procedure code. Criminal procedure code. Only difference is that the police officer will be replaced with the GST officer or commissioner, but other things will be same, the procedure will be same. So these are the two questions given for inspection, search, seizure and arrest. Then offences and penalties. So there are some more lot of questions are there. You can see chapter number 21. Answer the following questions. Radha Swami owns and supplies certain goods costing rupees 30 lakhs in a conveyance hired from Manikarnan transporters. Market value of the said goods is 40 lakhs and tax chargeable thereon is 4,80,000. So what is the market value of the goods? 40 lakhs and tax chargeable thereon is 4,80,000. The goods supplied by Radha Swami and the conveyance owned by Manikarnan transporters used for carriage of such goods are confiscated since Radha Swami has supplied the said goods in contraventions of the provisions of CGST Act section 129. Goods as well as conveyance is confiscated with an intent to evade payment of tax. However, the proper officer intends to give an option to the Radha Swami and Manikarnan transporters to pay in lieu of confiscation a fine leviable under section 130 of the CGST Act, determine the maximum amount of fine in lieu of confiscation. On the goods liable for confiscation, the conveyance used for carriage of such goods. So now it is redemption option given separately for goods and separately for the conveyance. With respect to goods, what is the redemption fine? Market value of the goods minus tax payable on such goods. It is not tax paid thereon. So it is tax chargeable on those goods. So 40 lakhs minus 4,80,000. And what is the redemption fine in case of the transporter for release of conveyance? Tax payable on such goods. What is the tax payable on such goods? 4,80,000. So you can see the redemption fine. First you need to write about the redemption fine under section 130. For goods it is 40 lakhs minus 4,80,000. In case of conveyance it is tax payable on such goods, that is 4,80,000. Then B. Raghuraman is a registered supplier in Madhya Pradesh. He failed to pay the GST amounting to 7,400 for the month of January. The proper officer imposed a penalty on Raghuraman for failure to pay tax. Raghuraman believes that it is a minor breach in accordance with the provisions of section 126. No penalty is imposable for minor breaches of tax regulation. What is a minor breach? A tax involved does not exceed 5,000 is known as minor breach. But what is the tax involved here? 7,400 rupees. It is not less than or equals to 5,000. Therefore, it is not a minor breach and penalty shall be levied. Raghuraman's claim is not tenable in law. Why not tenable in law? Because no officer shall impose any penalty for minor breaches. And what is considered as a minor breach? If amount of tax is less than 5,000. But in the case it is not less than 5,000. So it is more than 5,000. So it should be less than 5,000. It is more than 5,000. So penalty is imposable. Then remember, the minor breach means tax involved is not less than or equals to 5,000. It is less than 5,000. Answer the following questions. Question number 2, part 1. Shagun started supply of services in Vasi, Maharashtra from 1/1. Her turnover exceeded 20 lakhs on 25/1. However, she did not apply for registration. So it's a registration related default. Determine the amount of penalty, if any, that may be imposed on Shagun on 31/3 if the tax evaded by her as on the said date on account of failure to obtain registration is 1,26,000. Will this come under 122 subsection 1? Yes. Registration related default. And what will be the penalty? 10,000 rupees or tax involved, whichever is higher. What is the tax involved? 1,26,000. So 10,000 or 1,26,000, whichever is higher, 1,26,000 will be the penalty. Then next, number 2, Sagar, Managing Director of Telecom Solutions Limited, is issued a summon to appear before the central tax officer to produce the books of accounts of Telecom Solutions Limited in an inquiry conducted on the said company. Determine the amount of penalty, if any, that may be imposed on Sagar if he fails to appear before the central tax officer. See, failure to furnish information or documents asked for is given in 122 subsection 1, but failure to appear is given in 122 subsection 3. So therefore, a penalty up to 25,000 will be levied. So penalty up to 25,000. Then question number 3. Whether action can be taken for transportation of goods without valid documents, or if goods are attempted to be removed without proper records in the books. If explain the related provisions under the GST Act. So it's a theory question. You need to write about section 129. So about 129 you need to write, and what is a penalty when owner comes forward, when owner does not come forward. It's a pure theory question. Then question number 4. Examine the implications as regards the bailability and quantum of punishment on prosecution in respect of the following cases pertaining to the period December under CGST Act. X collects 245 lakhs as tax from its clients and deposits 241 lakhs with the central government. So what is not deposited is 4 lakhs. It is found that he has falsified financial records and has not maintained proper records. So there are 2 offences. First, collected an amount as tax and not deposited. What is that offence? They are asking, explain the implications as regarding bailability and the quantum of punishment on prosecution. So collected amount as tax and not deposited, what is the tax involved? The tax involved is just 4 lakhs. In that case, there is no imprisonment, because for imprisonment it should be more than 1 crore. And whether it is a non-cognizable offence, first of all, non-cognizable offence only, because it is not exceeding 5 crores. Arrest, impossible. So that is the answer you need to write as per section 132. So what is this? It is just 4 lakhs and he will not be punishable with any imprisonment. Further, falsification of records. He has falsified financial records and has not maintained proper records. So here it is like attempting to commit or abetting commission of an offence related to books of accounts default, and in that case 6 months or fine or both, that will be applicable. Okay, and the said offence is non-cognizable and bailable in nature, assuming that falsification of records is with an intention to evade payment of tax due under CGST Act. Then second year, failure to pay, that is second one, while collects 550 lakhs as tax from its clients but deposits only 30 lakhs with the central government. So it exceeds 5 crores. So the imprisonment will be minimum 6 months, maximum 5 years plus fine. And what about this offence? This offence, as it exceeds 5 crores, collected amount as tax, collects 550 lakhs as tax, collects 550 lakhs as tax. So it is amount collected as tax and not deposited. So therefore, there will be called as cognizable offence plus non-bailable offence. Say this. Failure to pay an amount collected as tax beyond 3 months from the due date is punishable with imprisonment up to 5 years with fine. Since the amount of tax evaded exceeds 5 crores, why is imprisonment up to 5 years and with fine? It is assumed that the amount of 520 lakhs collected as tax is not paid beyond 3 months from the due date of payment. Further, the imprisonment will be minimum 6 months and it may extend up to 5 years. And question number 5. From the details given below, determine the maximum amount of fine in lieu of confiscation leviable under section 130. So redemption fine. The goods are liable for confiscation, conveyance used for carriage of such goods. Cost of the goods for the owner, irrelevant. For this redemption fine in case of release of the goods, market value of the goods 20 lakhs and GST applicable on that goods 3 lakh 60. So 20 lakhs minus 3 lakh 60, 16 lakh 40,000. And if it is for release of the conveyance, just 3 lakh 60,000. Another question. From the following details, calculate the amount to be paid for release of the goods detained or seized under section 129 if owner of the goods does not come forward. If owner is not coming forward, and if it is taxable goods, owner is not coming forward. 50% of the value of the goods. What is 50% of the value of the goods? 30 lakhs into 50%, 15 lakhs minus tax paid thereon. What is tax paid thereon? 3,60,000. It is not applicable GST, tax paid thereon, so 3,60,000. So you need to take 50% of 30 lakhs minus 3,60,000. Therefore, they added tax. I am talking about only penalty. Tax anyhow is payable, plus 50% of value of the goods minus tax paid thereon. So therefore, 16,80,000 is payable. However, if it is exempted goods, then it will be, penalty will be 5% of the value of the goods or 25,000, whichever is lower. And in case of question number 7, XYZ carries goods from Vadodara, Gujarat to Pune, Maharashtra. The value of the goods is 80,000, which are chargeable to tax at 18%, IGST, and in transit proper officer intercepted the same under section 68 of the CGST Act and found contravention. Calculate the penalty payable under section 129 if XYZ comes forward for payment of tax and penalty. If XYZ comes forward, then what will be the penalty? 100% of the tax. What is 100% of the tax? 80,000 into 18%. 80,000 into 18%, 14,400. That will be the penalty, but that is payable under IGST Act, which means IGST rate we are taking for calculating that. Then if XYZ does not come forward for payment of tax and penalty, then what will be? First we need to take the 50% of value of the goods. 50% of value of the goods. What is the value of the goods? What is the value of the goods? 80,000. 80,000 into 50%, 40,000, and minus tax charged thereon. So tax paid thereon. Here you need to take an assumption that tax has been paid. Then why sir they took 100%? Because 50% under CGST Act, 50% under SGST Act. So what you can do is, you can take 80,000 into 50% minus tax on this 80,000 into 9%. So that is 80,000 into 50% is 40,000. 40,000 minus 80,000 into 9%, that is 7,200. That comes to 40,000 minus 7,200 comes to 32,800 into 2, that is 65,600. So that way also you can calculate. Then question number 8, and here the assumption is what? Tax paid thereon is considered as 14,400. Suppose if that assumption is not taken, the tax paid thereon is not there, then you cannot deduct that 14,400. Mangeshwar, registered under CGST Act, has made a breach in payment of tax amounting to 6,100. Assessing authority has imposed a penalty as per law applicable to the breach. Invoking the provisions of section 126, Mangeshwar argues that it is a minor breach and therefore no penalty is imposable. Amount is 6,100, cannot be considered as a minor breach, so penalty will be imposed. In another instance, Mangeshwar has omitted certain details in documentation that is not easily rectifiable, that has occurred due to the gross negligence on his accountant, and he makes a plea that he was unaware of this and therefore no penalty should be levied. False. See, penalty will not be levied if it is rectifiable and not on account of gross negligence, but here it is not rectifiable and that is because of gross negligence, so therefore penalty will be levied. Mangeshwar voluntarily writes accepting a major procedural lapse from his side and requests the officer to condone the lapse as the loss caused due to revenue was not significant. So he is coming forward and therefore that may be considered as one of the factors for reducing the penalty. Also, a lapse on part of Mangeshwar has no specific penalty provision under CGST Act. He is very confident that no penalty should be levied as there is no specific provision under the Act. Even if there is no penalty for any contravention under this Act, the general penalty under section 125 will be applicable, wherein the penalty will be up to 25,000 under each Act. What are cognizable and non-cognizable offences under section 132? First, what is cognizable offence? Invoice default means supply without invoice, or invoice without supply, then ITC default, availment of ITC, then failure to pay the amount collected as tax to the government beyond a period of 3 months, and all other offences are non-cognizable. Where an offence under GST law is committed by a taxable person being a trust, who are deemed to be guilty of the offence, under what circumstances, when do the relevant provisions become inapplicable in respect of individuals concerned with the trust? It's a theory question, section 137. If there is any offence which is committed by the trust, then the trustee, the person who is managing the trust, managing trustee, is deemed to have committed the offence, and all other members of the trust are not deemed to have committed the offence, but penalty can be imposed on them if they fail to prove the contrary, that they are not involved in that offence, or they have acted in good faith and they tried to not commit that offence. See this. Section 137 stipulates that where an offence under the GST law is committed by a taxable person being a trust, the managing trustee shall be deemed to be guilty. There is no escaping provision. Managing trustee is deemed to be guilty. Further, when it is proved that offence is committed by the trust has been committed with the consent or connivance or is attributable to any negligence on part of any other individual. For other individual, it should be like they should prove that they are not involved, otherwise it will be levied on them. Where it is proved that offence committed by the trust has been committed with the consent or connivance of or is attributable to any negligence on the part of any other individual concerned with the trust, then on that other person penalty will be levied. Shall also be deemed to be guilty. But managing trustee, no need to prove, default. Whereas other people, it should be proved that. And the relevant provisions will become inapplicable in respect of individuals concerned with the trust, not managing trustee. It is on the individuals concerned with the trust. If they prove that the offence was committed without their knowledge, or that they have exercised all due diligence to prevent the commission of such offence. Then compounding of offences I have not given in summary. So compounding of offences, just one point you need to remember. So whenever there is an offence, so that is compounded. So in that case, what is the minimum and maximum compounding amount that can be collected? The minimum is 50% of the tax involved, or 10,000, whichever is higher, and the maximum is 150% of the tax involved, or 30,000, whichever is higher, just 3 times the minimum. And in the case the department has given a compounding fee of 2.5 crores, has given a 2.5 crores compounding fee for a GST liability of 4.2 crores. So it is a minimum. 4.2 half is 2.1, and 3 times that minimum, or 4.2 150%. So that is 6.3 2.10. So what is the fine that is levied, compounding fee that is levied? 2.5 crores. It is within that limit, therefore that is valid. And what will happen once this compounding fee is paid? If compounding fee is paid, even if any criminal proceeding is initiated, everything will stand dropped, abated. See that if taxable person pays the compounding amount decided by the commissioner, no further proceeding will be initiated, and if already it is initiated in respect of the said offence, then it shall stand abated. So these are the questions for practice given in ICI. So the summary material with these questions will be sufficient, and with that revision lecture number 9 we have completed, and we will be proceeding to revision lecture number 10, that is appeals, advance ruling, demand and recovery, in the next video. Thank you.